Hello, I'm Martin Warwick. We are at the Small Cells World Summit 2014 at Excel in London's Docklands, and I'm talking with Peter Jarich of Current Analysis. Peter, what factors are driving demand for small cell technology in mobile networks right now?
So, you really hear a couple things, right? Coverage and capacity. But if we think about it, the issue of coverage and capacity really comes down to some more fundamental issues. One, just what users are doing, right? The mobile is becoming a much bigger part of their life, using a lot more data. But then on the opposite side, for operators, we can think about it in terms of coverage or capacity or user experience. And really it's about delivering that user experience so that the users can get the data that they want. And that might be Wi-Fi, it might be 3G, it might be 4G, but 4G from a capacity standpoint is what people are looking at. But really also just making sure they have the capacity to do what they need and the coverage to do what they want, where they want to do it.
What do you think are the key challenges, the problems that are being faced by telcos as they begin to deploy and implement small cell solutions?
The problems, it really depends upon the type of deployments you're looking at, right? So ultimately I think what you'll hear here and you'll hear from operators is that there's two different markets fundamentally, right? So let's take the residential out of this for a bit. There's the residential market, there's indoor markets, there's outdoor markets, right? From an indoor perspective, we're looking at big enterprises, whether it's Fortune 500 or Fortune 5000. Outdoor, we're looking at extensions of the operator's network. Each of those have their own unique problems, their own unique complexities that go with it, right? Outdoors, it's site space, it's backhaul. How do we get backhaul to the right places? How do we find those right places that we want to launch, mount that small cell, right? How do we get approval to do it, right? Fighting with cities, with municipalities, regulatory. How do we get through all of that and just get all these things deployed? Indoor, it's a question of what's the right architecture? How do we build the network? Who helps us build the network? What's the business model? It's much more of a business discussion to figure out how does the operator take part in that. So I think there's no shortage right now. We know what the demand is. We know what's driving this. Making it a reality is a little bit tougher than just saying, let's go and do it.
Now, do you think small cell technology is actually capable of delivering telco requirements now, as of this moment, or does the technology need more development?
So I definitely think it's capable of meeting the telco requirements. Now, those will always evolve and the products will evolve. But the question is, are we talking technical requirements or business requirements? From a technical perspective, no problem at all, right? I think the products are out there. But when you get where you see these disconnects to some extent is where operators want a certain price point and vendors are saying, look, we can't get there. Or whenever you hear a vendor say you need to think of total cost of ownership, or you need to think of a solution, that's shorthand for we don't want to come down on price. Look at the backhaul side of things, right? On the backhaul side of things, there's lots of different small vendors who all have different architectures. Well, why is that? Because the operators haven't given one clear view of here are the 2 or 3 things we need. So I think to some extent, from a technology standpoint, yes, given the basics of what an operator needs done, technology's there, but a lot of what they want done from a business model side, from an architecture side, they're still figuring out, so it's tough to say that we're really there yet.
And how does small cells for 4G and beyond fit in with the move towards NFV, Network Functions Virtualization?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. If only because they both fit together because they're both big buzzwords, right? So they're, NFV probably a bit newer. Small cells have been around for a while. I think on that level they fit together to the extent that one can learn from the other, right? So we saw big, years ago when it was still the Femto Forum and the show was focused on that, we saw huge forecasts. It's going to happen next year. We're going to have it all figured out. The world's going to be, the revolution will be done within 2 years, right? So I think on the one level we can learn from that going, the hype around NFV, we need to sort of take a breath, realize it's probably going to take longer. On the other hand, I think there's a lot where you can see synergies in terms of when we look at small cells and small cell gateways, can those gateways be virtualized? Do they need to be on-premise? Can they be virtualized? Likewise, if we think about the evolved packet core, can we push the evolved packet core, the operator's mobile core, closer to the end user, closer to those small cell networks. We've talked about doing that for years. It's been tough in the past because that's been really heavy iron that you would have to re-engineer to be lower capacity. Can we do that more easily now with NFV? Definitely, right? And if we think about some of the enterprise applications, will NFV allow us to push more capabilities towards the edge of the network because we can now do it on general purpose equipment? It should, right? So we generally don't see a lot of discussion of NFV or SDN, which sometimes goes along with NFV, in this group, in the small cell group, but there's a lot of synergies there that I think as the two evolve, we should see them coming together much more.
What role do you see for small cells beyond 4G and into future 5G networks?
There's a lot of questions of what 5G is, right? And will it involve a new air interface? Will there be massive changes to the networks? I think one of the things that we're hearing definitely about 5G is really going to have to be more about how do we integrate different parts of the network, different network capabilities much better than we're doing today. And fundamentally, it's the same promise as what we hear or what we might term heterogeneous networking, right? How do we have different technologies, different levels of the network work together? So on that level, I think it's well understood that small cells are going to have to be a part of that 5G network. Whether that's just how do they better integrate into the existing network, whether it's small cells with a new air interface, whether it's small cells that integrate something like LTE unlicensed, right? They're going to be, I don't think we have the answer. No one knows what 5G is yet, but how they all fit together is definitely going to be part of the solution.
Fascinating stuff. Peter Jarich, thanks very much.
Thank you.